Hey guys, welcome back. So today I'm out here shooting my Glock Gen 4 Model 21. The Gen 4 represents some changes from the previous generation of Glocks, and we're going to talk about some of those changes this afternoon and take a closer look at this new generation of Glock pistols. Here on the hood of the Jeep I have two Glock pistols. Here's my original Glock 21, which is a Glock 21 SF. This is the pistol that Glock made to enter into the U.S. military trials. It has a 1913 style rail, which is no longer available. It also has an ambidextrous magazine release, which they abandoned due to problems with functionality, although I've had no problems with my particular copy. And it has the slim grip frame. The original Glock 21 had a slightly thicker grip, which I never really cared for, so I didn't get into the Glock 21s until these SF or slim frame models became available. This is the Glock 21 Gen 4. Looks pretty much identical, right? Well, there's some key differences to this pistol. Some internal, some external. First of all, this pistol has the ability to pin on back straps to increase the grip thickness of the pistol. I can only imagine why somebody would want to do that. Maybe you bought an early Glock 21 before the SF frames were available and you just got used to it, and now you shoot it good and you want it to be thick again. That's about the only reason I can think of anybody wanting to do it, because honestly, the original Glock 21 feels like a brick. It does not shoot well for me, does not feel good. So I think that's a bit of a dubious feature. I think it's kind of goofy, and I think it's Glock just trying to follow the pack. If they wanted to do something like removable grip inserts, they should have designed a new pistol around it and not kind of jerry-rigged it to the existing Glock 21. Internally, you'll find some differences. I'm going to go ahead and make sure that the weapon's clear. I'm going to disassemble it. And this is where things get a little bit different. Take a look at that recoil spring. In case you're not used to looking at Glock recoil springs, let me show you what the traditional Glock recoil spring looks like. Here's the new generation recoil spring, and here's the old. Notice that the new recoil spring is a double spring. The spring is still captured, but it also changes the diameter of the hole on the end of the slide. Let me go ahead and put this one back in here, and I'll show you the differences there as well. Here's the new one right here, the Gen 4, and here's the older generation. So you'll notice that they're very different in that regard. However, once you get further inside the pistol, you'll find that things like the barrel are identical. There are no changes to the barrel. I can take the barrel out of my SF model. This is the Gen 4 slide. This is the barrel out of my Gen 3 Glock 21. It'll drop right in. I can even take the double recoil spring of the Gen 4 and it'll fit in the pistol just fine. This is the Gen 4 frame. I can put it on the gun and it'll work just fine. So the differences don't really change the compatibility between the guns all that much. You can still swap parts out, which is important for things like if you shoot lead bullets, which I shoot quite a bit of. I do have a Lone Wolf barrel here. Here it is. Here's my Lone Wolf barrel that I use for shooting lead reloads in my Glock. Now, why I use a Lone Wolf barrel is because a Glock has a polygonal rifled barrel. You don't want to shoot lead bullets in polygonal barrels. Some folks will tell you, oh, I fired 10,000 rounds, I've never blown my gun up. As the late, great Gail McMillan once said, it's not a matter of if you'll blow your gun up, it's only a matter of when if you're shooting lead in polygonal barrels. So to avoid that particular catastrophe, I use these Lone Wolf barrels. The Lone Wolf barrel has a traditional rifling in it, so it's safe to shoot with lead. I'm going to take my Gen 4 slide. You can see it's a Gen 4. I bought this barrel from my original Glock 21. Put it together, and I'll show you this working here in just a few minutes. And I can put the gun back together. Now it's safe to shoot lead bullets. So if you already have a barrel for your Glock 21 and you buy the new Gen 4, don't worry about dropping it in the gun. It'll work just fine. Everything else is pretty much the same. The sights are identical, the thickness of the slide is identical, even the weight of the pistol is identical. One other variation is take a look at this magazine release. Here's the magazine release on the older Glock, and here it is on the newer Glock. It's much bigger. It's nice. I do like that. It's not ambidextrous, but it is big, it is nice, and you can reverse it, I believe. So the other difference is the texture of the grip. Take a look at that texture. It's almost like an RTF, or a rough textured finish that Glock has used in the past, but it's not nearly as rough. If you carry this gun next to your side, the old RTF2 receivers or frames would just rub on you like sandpaper. I have a Glock 19 with that finish on the grip, and it's horrible. It's within a couple of hours of wearing it, it has my whole side red. It's not comfortable at all. These bumps are kind of muted. See if I can get the camera to focus here. So they're not as sharp, and they're not going to rub on you like the RTF frames will. Here's the standard Glock texturing. As you can see, it's different. The Gen 4 has the standard Glock rail on it. The trigger, everything else is identical. If you're used to firing your Glock 21, you'll fall right into shooting this. Now, the only thing that made me kind of interested in the Gen 4 pistol was this double recoil spring. Now, a lot of folks don't like it because, and I kind of agree with them, it doesn't belong on the 19 or the 17. It's just unnecessary. But the 45 has quite a bit more recoil than 9mm, and in theory, this spring should help dampen some of that recoil, and we'll talk about that here in just a few minutes. So that's why I wanted to try out the Gen 4. There have been some problems with the Gen 4. There's been problems with the springs in some of the pistols, and there's been problems with the extractors. By problems, I mean the guns have been known to be unreliable in some instances for some shooters. This pistol I've had for almost a year now, so I've had a lot of time to shoot it, and I've had no malfunctions with the gun, and that includes using some of my lead reloads that are loaded from my 1911s that aren't all that hot loaded. So I found that this particular example has been extremely reliable, at least as reliable as my Gen 3 Model 21 SF. When you buy a Glock pistol, you're going to get a whole bunch of stuff in the box these days. Get a magazine reloader, you're going to get a cleaning rod, you're going to get a brush, a lock, a spent casing for those states that require it, and then here are the insertable grip panels. Not impressed with them, don't use them, have no reason to thicken up the grip on my Model 21. So it comes with all the standard accessories that you would expect in its handy little improved Tupperware box. I remember the old days where you had literally a Tupperware box where you had a press-on lid. Now they've come up with these nicer carrying cases, which are not airline safe, so don't think that you're going to buy this and be able to take it on the airline with you. You can't. You're going to have to buy a better box. Let's do some more shooting with the Glock 21 Gen 4. I'm going to start off with shooting my Glock 3rd generation SF Model 21. I'm going to fire 10 rounds out of this pistol and try to give you guys an idea of how this pistol recoils, then compare that to the new Gen 4 21. I'm shooting some Federal 230 grain ball ammunition, which is factory range ammo. Let's see how the pistol performs. All right, 10 rounds out of that. Now let's try 10 rounds out of the new Gen 4 21. Same ammunition. Honestly, guys, I don't see any appreciable difference between the two pistols in terms of recoil and recoil management. They kick identically to me with the same factory ammo. So really, that double recoil spring isn't doing much for me in terms of reducing that recoil or reducing the muzzle flip or giving me an advantage in firing fast follow-up shots. I've now put my Lone Wolf barrel into my Glock 21 Gen 4. I'm going to fire some of my reloads. These are 230 grain ball rounds that are loaded just a little over 800 feet per second. They're not very hot at all. I want to show you guys how the pistol works using these lighter loads, which are meant for my 1911. I've shot a lot of these loads out of this pistol, and they're 100% reliable. So overall, I think that the Glock Gen 4 is a very reliable handgun. Again, I've had no problems with it, and I've been impressed with the performance. But is it any better than the Gen 3 or previous generations, aside from the narrower grip frame? I don't know. Accuracy with the Gen 4 Model 21 is pretty much the exact same accuracy I've gotten out of my older 21 SF. Really, there's no real appreciable difference between the two pistols in terms of their accuracy performance. The Glock Model 21 Gen 4 is the next evolutionary step in the Glock family. They've made some changes I've pointed out in the video. Some of them I think are worthy of an upgrade, others I really don't care about. The double recoil spring I could live without. Why mess with perfection, right? The old ones worked great. This one seems to work great, so I'm not going to worry about it too much. There were some reports on the internet of this spring system being problematic. I haven't had those problems with this Model 21, so I'm not going to worry about it too much. The texture on the grip frame, you know what? It's different, but is it any better than the older texture? Not really. It is better than the RTF2 texture because it doesn't cut you up like that. So, you know, it's a change. Is it any better? I don't know. The grip inserts, gimmick. Totally useless to me. Glock was just doing it as an afterthought, trying to be competitive, I think. They should have never done it. The only real reason I can see doing an upgrade is for this larger magazine release. It is nice. For an MSRP of 680 bucks, you know, it's not a cheap handgun, but you know what? Fortunately, you can buy them on the street for a lot less than that. I've seen them online for right around $550 to $580. So for less than $600, you can have your own copy. The handguns are compatible with older magazines like this one, as well as the newer generation magazines like this one with all the different cuts on it for the different handguns over the years. It also is compatible with, you know, disc connector or trigger bars. It's compatible with older 21 sights. Most of your drop-in parts are going to work in this pistol, including the barrel. The trigger is your standard Glock trigger. It's a 5.5 pound release. It's your typical mushy, over-travel-y picture. Spider in my way there, not sure how he got there. So it's your typical Glock trigger. I found if you master the pistol, get a little bit of shooting after, you know, a couple of months, you should be able to master that Glock trigger with some rounds down range. I've been able to shoot Glocks very well with their factory triggers, so I have no problem. And this 5.5 pound trigger is a good weight, and again, it's pretty consistent across their product lines right now. If you guys have any questions about the Glock Model 21 Generation 4, you can ask those questions on our Facebook page. You can find us on Facebook at www.facebook.com/militaryarms. As always, everybody, thanks for watching. Thanks for those subs, and I'll talk to you guys soon.